Thomas and the Trucks is a similar episode to Thomas's Train. It's an early Thomas episode where he pulls a train and learns from his actions. But is it any better, or is it just a copy and paste? Thomas is humiliated after his attempt at pulling his first train, but he's still determined to get out there and see more of the island than just Vickerstown Yard, or Knapford Yard in the TV show. The other engines are annoyed at him, but Edward takes pity and lets Thomas take his good train the next day. Thomas is too excited to listen to Edward's advice and loses control on a hill. He crashes and gets scolded by the Fat Controller, albeit in a fairly fair manner. Yet again, the big four are all done well. Narration and model work are both good. The writing is also done well, but I will go more into that in a later section. As for the music, it's all fine and good music, but why didn't they use the Runaway theme? Had they not written it yet? The music is good, but it lacks the sense of urgency that the Runaway theme had. It means you don't really get a sense of just how dire Thomas's situation is. Yes, you can get that from the panicked narration and Thomas whistling, but the music seems almost a bit too casual. Like the sad story of Henry and Edward, Gordon and Henry, this episode did not have a real-life influence, making it the only story from the book Thomas the Tank Engine to be completely original. Again, the adaptation is very similar to the Railway series story, almost word for word for most of it. Part of what makes the first two seasons so great was how closely they stuck to the source material. Some of the looser adaptations they did in season 3 were still great, but in most cases couldn't compete with the Railway series story. Sticking so closely to the books is part of what makes those first two seasons resonate with fans so much. However, with all the faithful retellings and loyal adaptations, there is one thing that the TV crew either misunderstood or intentionally changed, and that is first noticeable with this story. In the Railway series, Gordon's Hill only has one slope. Wellsworth and the west of the island is on low ground, then there's a slope, and Maron and the east of the island are on higher ground. The hill is only in one direction, there's only one side of the hill. However, the TV crew decided to have it just be a hill that goes up, and then down. Like I said, I don't know whether this was an intentional change, or the TV crew just not understanding what Audrey originally meant, but it does create a couple of problems for the TV show. Why would they build tracks going up this steep hill, a hill that engines repeatedly struggle to climb, when there's nothing even at the top? Why not go around it, or through it? They should not need to go over this ridiculously steep hill if there's not even anything at the top of it. With this episode, it means they have to very awkwardly add a narrator line saying, "At last they slowed down when they reached Gordon's Hill." The line just feels awkward, it adds nothing to the plot, if anything it takes away from it, and they only felt the need to add it in because of this change. It's not a huge deal, but it is definitely one of the changes the TV crew made for the worse. Thomas and the Trucks is an episode which, on the bare surface, doesn't do a lot. A bit like Thomas's Train, this episode doesn't appear to have a great deal happening and can come across as a bit boring. And for an episode that has a runaway scene, it should never be boring. However, if you look underneath the surface, there's actually quite a bit going on. This episode is very important when it comes to Thomas's character arc. It started in Thomas and Gordon, and progresses a little bit in Thomas's train, but Thomas and the Trucks, I think, is the main progressing stage. I mentioned in the Thomas and Gordon review that one of the main reasons Thomas thinks no engine works as hard as he does is because he doesn't understand the work that goes into pulling trains. He thinks they get nice relaxing days travelling up and down the line, while he gets all the hard work in the yard. And the middle two stories exist to help him understand that it's actually not that easy. The other engines face big issues every day that they have to deal with. The other engines aren't just lazing around all day. Their jobs aren't as easy as Thomas thought they were. Maybe, just maybe, Thomas was wrong to tease them and say they did no work. There is an element of that in Thomas's train, but it's more apparent in this episode, so I waited until this review to mention it. The main thing to note about this episode is that it's the first episode to feature the trucks being troublesome and causing a runaway. Yes, there was an issue with trucks in Edward and Gordon, but that was Gordon being troublesome, not the trucks. Here, the trucks are the main problem, and we have our first proper runaway. Like I said, it's not a great runaway scene. It can come across as a bit boring, the music is a bit too casual, and you don't get any sort of sense of urgency or that this is a dangerous situation. But it's not that bad either. It does its job. There have been times where other situations with a similar level of danger have been done much worse, and given it was their first runaway scene, I can't give them too much criticism. They definitely improved as they went on, and at the end of the day, that's all you can ask from something. It may not be the best runaway scene, but it is still very notable for being the first. When it came to picking a favourite moment from this episode, I'll probably say the scene where Thomas is pulling the trucks and everything is fine. Between leaving the station but before the hill. It's a jolly scene where you do actually feel happy for Thomas. The music is great to listen to, and is just all round a great scene to watch. Despite how much I have come to appreciate this episode for Thomas's character arc, the fact that it can come across as a bit boring, especially the runaway, means it stays as a good on the Season 1 tier list. It has a lot to love, but is far from being the best episode, and if this wasn't the first runaway, it wouldn't be particularly groundbreaking either. So that is all I have to say about Thomas and the Trucks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any more of this series. Please comment down below what your thoughts on this episode are, but that's all I have for you today. I will see you tomorrow.